Hey guys, you were watching VaulSC. Today we're looking at a game of infiNity between the Onyx sectorial of Combined Army and our old mates PanOceania. So, it's been a while coming, but I've finally got around to painting up my copy of the Kerr-Nau Diafo character. And it'll be my first time playing him in an actual game. So it's the debut. This was a day in the week where I managed to get in 2 games, both games on the same table, and you'll find that in this particular bat rep that you're watching right now in this video, and the next video I'm going to be posting after this, I'll be on the same table against different opponents, but in the same deployment zone, so that's kind of funny. Anyway, Onyx against PanOceania. This is a bit of a bird's eye view of the table we're playing on, and we decided to play Tic-Tac-Toe for this one. I haven't played this in a while. So Tic-Tac-Toe is a little bit like Com Center in the sense that there are, let's get a different color out, shall we? Let's get the green. So there are 9 objectives, as you can see through the grid here in the table. On this side of the table, you've got our friends PanOceania, and on this side of the table, we've got our friends from Onyx. And the idea is to go out and pass whip checks, pressing the buttons with your specialists. You get +3 to any attempt for anybody if you've got an Evo repeater as well, but neither of us took Evo repeaters because we just decided on the spur of the moment to play this particular mission. Interestingly, you get bonus points if by the end of the game you've captured 3 objectives and they're all in a row. So just in the same way that you play Tic-Tac-Toe and Noughts and Crosses, if you've got some sort of line going, you get bonus points. Also, if you travel to their side of the deployment zone and pick up 1 on their side, that's allowing it to be worth more as well. So I managed to win the roll for tableside, and normally going second turn's really good here because it's way easier to pick the exact right objectives you need to capture if you have the last turn because your opponent can't recapture them from you. Having said that, playing Onyx is somewhat challenging because you need to deploy on the side of a table where there is enough stuff to hide models that can't go prone, because you're playing all the Unidrones and the Q drone and the Icadrons and the R drone and so forth, so it's quite hard to find significant places to deploy them. I actually went with this table side here, and my opponent was able to choose second turn. So I have a little bit of an advantage given that I can deploy my army as I want to in the right deployment zone, but my opponent's got an advantage in the sense that if he could just hold out for 3 turns, it'll be very easy for him to win just by moving, say, a Tio Camo, Hexa, or Crocman over to my side of the table and taking one of these objectives. That's more than likely to disrupt my ability to capture 3 in a row, and he should get the bonus for capturing the ones further away. But we'll see how that goes. I still have 3 turns to destroy specialists and capture so many consoles that he has trouble taking the right ones back. Let me just have a look at what I'm trying to find here. Oh. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this image here. This is a much better overview of the table. So this is a look from the other side where if you look at this, it's Onyx on this side and PanOceania on this side. Don't be fooled by this big raised piece of terrain here. It's actually quite a really cool piece that I've shown before where that's about an S2 high off the ground, but there are a lot of bits of terrain on top of it. Alright, so PanOceania deploying first, and we'll get out some pink or purple. He has a condiment center regular dude, and we'll just make this a bit smaller, who has a mine right on the corner here to help him defend. So if I come around this side to attack him from, I'm going to run into a mine and a Bulleteer who has a repeater. Bulleteer has a engineer's Palbot next to him. He's got a Trauma Dock way back here. There's an Auxilia team with a flamethrower on this side. There's I think a Pathfinder here. This, I believe, is his engineer. He has a Tech B here. This guy here is just probably his lieutenant, just a pleb Fusilier. That's a flashball spot. He's got another Auxilia dude on top of this building over here. And this is a Krakot Renegade that rolls up, I think, bioimmunity. Towards the middle, there was the engineer and Tech B and lieutenant that we just saw. He had that Pathfinder we just talked about. There's a hacker at the top of the staircase. This is, I think, an Auxilia or another Fusilier there, just a pleb Fusilier. He's got another one of these Quantum Center regulars, and he's got a mine over the side here. So the mine is planning on shooting here. I feel like this mine is a little bit poorly placed. I know it can't be shot at, but there is enough room for somebody to come through this side here without getting hit by the mine, because the mine's range should end around about at this point here. So I felt like he probably should have deployed that a little bit closer to the gap. And I believe this is another Fugazi flash pulse spot, and his HVT is right there. This is a photo of my hidden deployment Noctifer, just covering a few of the main lines to the table. Now we'll go through my setup. So on my right-hand side, we've got a Icodron. There's an Imatron in the middle of the table here. The link team consists of the big man, Kerr-Nau, right here. There's a plasma sniper up on the bridge right next to where the Noctifer was. Two more Icodrons here who are forward observers. There's another one which has got a deflector and K1 combi rifle. Not involved in the link at the moment is the Lieutenant Basic Specialist Nexus. There's a hacker in the secondary group to provide assisted fire, mainly to this guy with the plasma sniper. We've got a small doctor helper here, slave drone, connected to a doctor worm elsewhere on the table. So there's a bit of a closer view of what we just looked at. In fact, this guy is the K1 combi. We've got a forward observer here, the hacker. This is Kerr-Nau himself. That's the slave drone. There's the plasma sniper. There is the lieutenant, and over here we've got an R drone as well, just behind my cam. Left-hand flank, so the link team is back over that way. Over this side we've got the R drone, Doctor, Q drone with HMG. There's an Icodron on this left-hand side as well, and the HVT, even though it's a Yuching HVT. Bit of a better view at the beautiful plasma sniper. Love this guy. Some people take the missile launcher. I used to, but the missile launcher is just a bit easier to outrange. Either you can shoot it with a sniper rifle beyond its 40-inch range, or get in below its 24-inch range. Whereas this guy has a wider range band of good, of good +3 ability. I decided that I wasn't happy with my positioning of my my hacker, so I deployed him over here next to this dumpster instead, and put the Icodron where he was previously, because the Icodron repeater can be used to connect with the Unidron top of the building. So I made a bit of a replacement. Pano reserve model is the NIS HMG prone behind the staircase here, near to the Krakot Renegade. My reserve model is this beautiful Umbra Samaritan with Spitfire. Okay, so the plan is to send him in, and that's what this guy is for. The reason you take this guy is to attack first turn, shoot them some things with the Spitfire. It can be a lot easier to find your targets thanks to Super Jump. And his ultimate goal is to get so far into enemy territory that he can at some point move into base-to-base contact with a living model, use Protheon level 4, and increase his wounds value. That can also save him from certain arrows that shoot him as he does that. But anyway, his first target is this guy, the Krakot Renegade. So as he moves up the stairs, able to shoot at the Krakot Renegade. Krakot's just got an SMG, so if he rolls a crit or something awesome like that, we're just going to lose a 40-point model straight away, but that's unlikely. So Samaritan moves in and kills the Krakot. Now, what you can see here is, here's the Samaritan's position. I am balancing a Silhouette 2 marker on top of some props. Obviously, these boxes here aren't actually part of the scenery. I'm just putting them on the table so I can move a Silhouette marker around and try and find a location where he can super jump to the location of this Silhouette marker and see certain enemies. To make things awkward, we've got the NIS HMG prone on the staircase behind the lip of the stair here, and the Auxilia prone on the staircase behind the lip of the bottom stair. There's a bot at the background there, and over this side of the battlefield there's also a hacker and a Fugazi. So what I'm trying to do is move in such a way that I come into line of sight of 1 or 2 models at most. I don't really want to have to split burst between a NIS and a Auxilia combi and a flash pulse at the same time, because then something might go wrong. Anyway, with this happening, the Samaritan moving into position, and what he does is he manages to get into sight of this Fugazi and the hacker up at the top of the stairs first, before engaging this lot, and he's starting to get a couple of kills here. Luckily, the Spitfire doing some work, and with a few orders spent, does take out the hacker, and I believe he does destroy the Fugazi as well. My memory's a bit hazy of that. So here's another photo looking in. This hacker, because he's at the top of the staircase, this building, the platform that the Samaritan is on at the moment, comes up to about here in terms of height. All right, so he's got to get up about that much further to be able to see this guy, and his silhouette is already kind of tall, so he just needs to super jump just slightly higher than where he is to be able to see the hacker, and as he comes around this side, he's going to start to see the Fugazi, so that's quite easy to achieve. Still maneuvering with the silhouette marker now, trying to get to a location where I can start spitting down on the Auxilia, Nis, and Pathfinder. The ultimate goal is to kill the Nis because, Nis is his main source of, destroying my AROs. Also, the Noctifer will have a better time this game if the Nis can be removed. So that would be great. I would like to jump into close combat here, but I do have to avoid certain flamethrowers from Auxilia bots, and I don't really want to be hit by a flash pulse. So the Umbra moving up to a spot here where finally he can get range to a couple of these guys at once, and hopefully bursting one of them down, and then finally moving into close combat, given that we've got 2 or 3 orders left at this point. So my opponent has been waiting to spring a bit of a defensive trap here. Didn't want to use this too early, didn't want to use it too late, but we'll break this down and discuss this in a moment. As the Samaritan moves through to get line of sight to the Nis and the Auxilia with combi, he reveals a Hexakiller hacker from hidden deployment here, able to fire a combi at me, and from just further ahead, I've just passed the position of his Crocman. The Crocman's facing is across here and towards this direction, so because he comes out of Marker State, he can face him in any particular direction, whereas the Hexa is in this particular direction. So you can see what he's trying to do here. He's trying to go into a bit of damage control management here, and trying to finish off the Samaritan if possible. The Samaritan moves through with his first short skill. The AROs are, pistol with the Nis, combi with the Auxilia, another combi with the Hexa, and another combi with the Crocman. So if the Samaritan splits burst on everybody, he's firing 1 Spitfire shot at the Nis, hitting on something like a 6. 1 at the Auxilia, hitting on a 12. I say that because, the Nis is short range minus mimetism minus cover, whereas the Auxilia is mid-range with no mimetism and cover. If he fires a Spitfire at these two, well, this guy is going to be -9, and this guy is going to be -6. So Spitfire is not really the right choice here. Luckily, this is a model that has hyperdynamics and physical 12, so the best move here, now that he's sprung the trap and revealed a surprise, and to be honest, I thought he'd be using like a Hexa Sniper or a Swiss Guard HMG or something hidden around there. But it turned out to be these guys, which makes a bit more sense for missions that involve a bit more button pressing. Anyway, going for the dodge, and the hope is that if I can roll a really average number, anything between 5 and 15, that might block some of the combi hits, and if some of the combis miss, and if I manage to tank an armor save on one of them, and take at most 1 wound, that will mean that I have a follow-up order during which I can actually move into close combat with one of these guys nearby and revive some orders. So I choose to dodge. My dodge roll is a 7, and what happens next is that one of the shots connects, inflicts a wound, another couple of shots miss, and I think one of the shots hits, but I pass the armor save. It goes around about like that. All I remember is that the Samaritan it takes 1 wound and goes into NWI. So, interesting. A bit of theory here. Is it better for him to spring the Crocman and the Auxilia a bit earlier? Well, if he does that, then the Samaritan is even less likely to take 2 wounds and is able to move into close combat with those particular guys and reap wounds out of them. If he doesn't reveal them at all, that may also be another good move. It may mean that I kill his Nis, and if that happens, then he's got, you know, nothing that can really deal with the Noctifer missile launcher later. Not that he knows that I have it, except possibly the Bulleteer, but the Bulleteer would be needing... well, the Bulleteer could do it, and especially with Shock, because he's got an engineer to help the Bulleteer, but he's got no hacker anymore because the Samaritans killed the hacker. So the Bulleteer would be hitting the Noctifer on 6s, on 4 dice. Noctifer shooting back, also needing a 6 on 1 dice in most scenarios. So it's not particularly clear as to, you know, when he should have sprung this, but springing at this point isn't a particularly bad move. So what I'm allowed to do now is move with the Samaritan into base contact with the Crocman. Note that the Samaritan is now still going to get shot at by all of these guys at once, but the thing is that his Prathion level 4 attack, CC24, is more than likely to beat the Crocman face-to-face. So there'll be 3 other combis shooting at him at fairly short range. If he can tank an armor save, or if one of them misses the shots, and the Prathion actually removes 1 or 2 wounds from the Crocman, the net result of gaining and losing wounds after the conclusion of the order might be that the Samaritan actually continues to survive, and then he will have come out of line of sight of these guys and actually get away. What happens, though, is that Samaritan rolls a crit, and the Crocman amazingly rolls a crit as well, so I don't actually get any wounds out of the Crocman at all. So Crocman just rolls the perfect dice roll of 15 or something like that, and just crits me unbelievably. And one of the other shots connects and actually kills the Samaritan. I think he actually rolls another crit with the nest or something crazy like that. So Samaritan initially getting a bit lucky and then getting a bit unlucky. So I don't really mind this. I mean, what could have happened during this run is that I could have just been hit by a flash pulse early and the run ends, the Samaritan runs away, and we continue with the game. That would have been bad luck for me. What could have also very easily happened here is that I could have actually cleaned up 5 or 6 models and still had a Samaritan with like 3 wounds sitting there in the middle of the table by the end of this, and he would have been really hard to shift. So I thought I played the Samaritan really well here, and my opponent did basically everything he needed to try and defend, and luckily got the dice to defend him. Game moves on. Now, one other benefit to this, and one other good piece of work that the Samaritan has done for me, is that he's now revealed his hidden deployment troopers. Unluckily for the Crocman is actually located here. And this is a model that would have deployed before my models deployed, right? Because I deployed second. So he couldn't have known that there was going to be a sniper here. Now that the Crocman was forced to reveal, the assisted fire goes on to the unit on sniper. I still have an order or 2 left in this group because the Samaritan has died prematurely. And now we can fire at the Crocman. So Ballistical 11, +3 for the length, +3 for range, -6 for Teo Camo. He ignores cover, so it's 3 dice on 11s. Crocman is actually facing this direction, so can't even shoot back. His line of facing's there. So the Plasma Sniper just annihilates him, which is a great way of reducing my opponent's capacity to actually score in this mission. And then lastly, what we've done is with Group 2, moving the Q drone around here, just because I don't really want him to be shot at by the NIS HMG immediately and killed. I'd rather preserve him for a little bit, because now that I've lost my Spitfire, I'd like something which can move and attack, and the Q drone is really what's needed there. Okay, so Pano turn 1, the retaliations. A NIS HMG moving around now, and the plan is to get into sight of the Unidron sniper and destroy him. So the HMG moves up perfectly so as to get to cover before coming into line of sight of the Plasma Sniper. But he doesn't know that there's a hidden deployment Noctifer here. So unfortunately, in his journey around this objective, before he hits cover, he would have come into line of sight of the Noctifer here. So the Noctifer gets a free shot before the NIS hits cover. Now, you might be asking me, well, hey, why would you reveal a Noctifer against a NIS with HMG? Because the NIS ignores Teo Camo with its MSV2. The Noctifer doesn't ignore the Mimetism. NIS has got 4 shots, Noctifer's only got 1 shot. So normally it would be really foolish to reveal a Noctifer in this position. But here is the reasoning why you crank out the Noctifer here, in my belief. You do it because the Nis is being shot back at not just by the Noctifer, but by the Unidron, which has assisted fire in a link. So there are going to be 2 shots from the Unidron and 1 shot from the Noctifer. If any of those hits connect with the Nis, he is likely to die because it's a missile or a plasma hit, right? If I can destroy that Nis, and the Nis somehow fails to destroy either one of these models, then that's one very powerful ARO piece which should dominate the game, or at least have a good chance of standing up to the Bulleteer. The second reason for activating this Noctifer here is that if we just look back a photo, he's walked past the Hexa, and the Noctifer can draw line of sight to the Nis at a point where the template, if the Nis, the Noctifer hits, will go down and clip the Hexa, and if that happens, he loses yet another very useful specialist for completing the objectives. If he has to try and press buttons with, a doctor or engineer or tech B, those models are much easier to stop and to provide arrows for at the end of the game, whereas the Hexa can go into TO Camo, move over to my side of the table, press a button. So seeing the opportunity to perhaps remove him, the reward is just too great to pass up. So with the Noctifer hitting on, I think, 12, plus 3 for range, minus 3 for mimetism on a 12, that's looking pretty good. And the Unidron firing at, 11, plus 3 for the link, plus 3 for range, minus 3 for mimetism, ignores cover, that's a 14 on 2 dice. Even if the Noctifer's not there, the Nis is actually taking a pretty serious risk by attacking here, because it's 2 dice on 13s, sorry, it's 4 dice on 13s versus 2 dice on 14s. Yeah, 4 dice 13s, 2 dice 14s against the Unidron. What our Pano player here chooses to do is to split the burst 2 and 2, which makes it even more difficult. So he's got 2 shots going into here into the Noctifer, and those will hit on 13s. And then he's got another 2 shots against the Unidron. Those are also hitting on 13s. Whereas if we grab a different color, we've got 1 shot going back here on a 12, and then we've got 2 shots going back in this direction on 14s. So, yeah, it's this is a really crucial point in the game, a real toss-up here, but it seems likely that this will be a pretty deciding factor. What ends up happening, though, is that the Noctifer rolls like a 2. And that connects, but the Nis beats him in the face-to-face roll and inflicts a wound, so the Noctifer goes dogged, will die at the end of the turn. The template does clip the Hexa, who's destroyed by the blast. Against the Unidron, though, it's 2 dice 13s versus 2 dice 14s, and the Unidron actually wins that and destroys the Nis. So the Nis has been lost, the Hex has been lost, and I will lose a Noctifer at the end of the turn, so I still at least get to use them to arrow with for the remainder of this turn. So that's actually a really good outcome for Onyx after all of that. So, seeing that he has a Bulleteer there and that he still needs to do some work, Bulleteer moving around, and his plan is to get into this sort of spot here where he can get line of sight to those 2 arrow pieces here. So let's take a look at it. Unfortunately, the Noctifer's still there, and because of this piece of terrain, he gets line of sight to the Noctifer first, and then we'll have to come around here and get line of sight to the Unidron. Now this is pretty bad because he's shooting at a model that is effectively free rolling here. He's looking to try and remove the Noctifer, even though the Noctifer's going to die at the end of the turn. I think one plausible course of action here is just to write off this turn and go, right, I've at least traded the Nis for the Noctifer, I'll move the Bulleteer out next turn and shoot at the Unidron. Because, you can afford to go slowly if you have the last turn. You can give the Onyx player another couple of turns to run around and press buttons, it doesn't matter, so long as you retain a strong position for later. So I think that rather than attacking the Noctifer with the Bulleteer and using up a few orders and potentially risking yourself, whereas it's not as great a risk if you move in second turn and just attack the Unidron only. And you've got a better odds against the Unidron, I believe, because Unidron doesn't have ODD or mimetism, whereas you've got ODD over your side. That would probably be the better play. Anyway, Bulleteer comes in against the Noctifer, gets destroyed, sadly. So luck going pretty well south for Pano, but the thing is, it's a risk I'm not really sure you really need to take. moves in with the Pal bot from the engineer to revive the Bulletier successfully. Bulletier has another go at it and dies the second time as well. So really, really unlucky that none of the face-to-face rolls there for the Bulletier work out. But again, he does not have a Sister Fire, no hacker. He is up against Teo Camo, so that's 4 dice on 6s. The Noctifer shooting back 1 dice on a 6 as well. So it's unlucky to lose that. But again, not the best odds in the world, given that you don't have MSV. So, rather sad. Moving some troops now around with the Acontecimento regulars just to set up suppression fire and put more mines down and just get into a better position. So turn 2, we've waited a long time to use our friend Kerr-Nau. He's now going to be moving out and trying to press some buttons because that's really important for this mission. So he's coming through here and just repositioning the link team. Does this so that, as you can see, the Unidron is now in the corner, and he needs to be there because we need to keep some coherency within the team. Kerr-Nau now moving out to this objective and pressing the button, as you can see here, successful. Then he leaves the link team and puts the link back into control of the Nexus Lieutenant as he moves off here, freelancing, goes for this one towards the middle of my deployment zone, presses that button as well, and then moves out towards enemy lines through to the center, is able to fire his plasma gun at this Fugazi over here as well, before retreating into the middle part of the table here next to this Emitron. Also moving through with the Q-Drone to a position where he can actually control this line here. It's just going to make it harder for my opponent to come into my side of the table and actually click some of these objectives with a Q-Drone there. And because he's lost his Bulletier, he's lost his NIS HMG, he's lost 2 of his important specialists, it's going to be very hard to deal with the Q-Drone now. Also moving the R-Drone as well for the Flash Pulse benefits. So, opponent has the Acontecimento regular. He's still got his HVT back over here. Not a lot to work with, though. The regular moving through, trying to put down some mines. Does come into line of sight of a Q-Drone, gets blasted, but he does put a mine into the center of the field. Tech B standing up now, trying to go for a bit of a run, but she's contested by the Unidron and later on the Q-Drone, so blown up as well. We have an Auxilia moving up to the objective on his side, to the right of his deployment zone. Picks this up after wasting a few orders, failing a few whip checks, but luck really not on the side of Pano today. And that little blue counter indicates a successful objective grab. My final turn, it's really basically all over, so moving in the Dr. Worm, pressing a button here, moving in the Q-Drone just to completely dominate this part of the battlefield, ensure that he can't really take anything back. Q-Drone moving up behind him, picking up this objective mid-left for me, and moving around to shoot the Auxilia after I've picked up the third one as well. The mine does go off and blows up the medtech, but with Kerr-Nau moving out to try and dodge the mine, fails to do that and dies. Unfortunately, mine going off on him. We can now move the hacker further up as well, just standing in the middle of the table to provide some AROs. And that's effectively it. So there's nothing the Pano player can do really in that last turn. What it really came down to is the loss of some key components. I mean, for attacking and controlling the table, he's got a Krakot Renegade, NIS HMG, a Bulletier, and to a lesser extent the Crocman and the Hexa. And once those 5 models are destroyed, then you can't really sort of fight against a Unidron Plasma Sniper and a Link. So, interesting game. I'm really liking the Samaritan. He's a difficult model to use correctly, but if you can play him well, he is able to do a lot of damage. He could have done more damage this game, but taking out the Krakot and the Hacker and a couple of bots, and then forcing the Crocman and the Hexa to reveal was good. I mean, I'd pay 40 points for that. That was really, really worth it. And for the possibility of doing even more work, killing a couple more people, getting up to 3 wounds and just hanging behind total cover, that would have been amazing. That would have been game-breaking. Also, if he gets hit by a really lucky flash pulse early on, he can just run back to the deployment zone and try again next turn without the deficit of 2 orders dropped from the command token at the start. The Noctifer and Unidron Link team worked in tandem very, very well. To be fair, the NIS HMG, he didn't know what he was up against. He had been surprised, but even despite that, it's quite possible that the NIS could have actually bested both those models had he been lucky. So imagine the NIS puts the Unidron into Dogged, and puts the Noctifer into Dogged. He basically just stops spending orders. The best Pano play there would just be to not do anything else for that end of that turn, wait for those 2 models to die, and then what can Onyx do? Lost the Samaritan, lost the Noctifer, lost the Unidron. Would have to sort of move out with Kerr-Nau and start shooting his plasma gun, but that's a bit of a liability because you end in the middle of the table with so many Unidrons, makes him a bit vulnerable to the Bulleteer. And the Q drone can be a bit awkward getting out there to get into the right spots. Although that's probably what the plan would have been, to put a Sister Fire on him and move out. But anyway, fun game, and good on Onyx for taking out a win. And we're going to be taking a look at this battle next up against Hakislam. That'll be my next bat rep, so stay tuned for it.